Ludwig Göransson has somehow managed to perfectly reimagine and reinvent the sound of Star Wars, even in the wake of the Star Wars sequels, which I don't think anyone knew that they could come back from. So today I want to talk a little bit about how the music was written for The Mandalorian. I think that it's amazing and I think we need to look into it in a bit more detail. But before we get into that, please do subscribe to the channel and give it a thumbs up and put that notification bell on because it really helps the channel out. So here is what makes the Mandalorian soundtrack great. Hope you enjoyed that little excerpt of music there. I really think it's a great main theme, and Ludwig Göransson does a really great job of kind of reimagining the sound of Star Wars. My name is Louis Taylor. I'm a composer and a producer based in Bristol. Welcome back to my YouTube channel, or welcome if you're new here. This is a series that I've recently started called What Makes Music Great. I hope that you'll join me over at the piano here to discuss a little bit more detail about the world of soundtracks. So, let's delve a little bit deeper into the main theme of The Mandalorian. To start with, I want to talk about how he perfectly encapsulates this amazing theme with the music. He starts off with this sort of solo recorder happening, which slowly grows and develops as it changes, but also there's harmonies that are added and also texture past that point that really adds a lot of depth to the music, but also intensity. And I think that this little introduction of about 30 seconds to a minute perfectly represents what's going on within the show as a whole. Because he starts off on his own, the Mandalorian, as quite a lone ranger, a bit of a maverick, and he likes to kind of not really care about anything and just kind of go about his life, earning his money, doing his bounty hunting. But the music is actually kind of representative of that at the beginning, but as it changes, it grows into this really nice harmonic material that has a sense of togetherness, but also kind of the badass nature is still retained, and then the intensity rises, as does the show. So this little intro really nicely represents what goes on in the show in that sense, where he gets more friends, more responsibility, more maturity, he has more empathy, but then also alongside all that there's still a lot of intensity that happens in the show. The nature of it's actually very serious, but really it's more of a classic Western type plot about a character just developing. I just want to look at the soundtrack a little bit more. You start with this flute. And that's kind of where the harmony starts to come in. Then you get this kind of dissonant, diminished type sound. So once that's kind of played out, you then have this build in intensity, and then suddenly beautifully well written piano line that just kind of sounds really nice and Western, that really kind of gives it a lot of impact as it starts off with the main theme. And it's a nice way to transition and land on a main theme with a completely kind of different intro, really. You then have this guitar coming in with this really nice kind of melodic rhythmic pattern, which you heard in the introduction to this video, and then suddenly the main theme comes in, which is just a really great classic kind of Star Wars theme tune, and he's just basically somehow reinvented the sound of Star Wars, turning it into this kind of unique Western soundtrack, whilst also bringing that kind of classic John Williams orchestral sound. And I think that everyone just loves it, basically. It's just a perfect way to write the music for the show. I could not think of a better composer to do it, especially after hearing it. So yeah, that's a little bit about how the theme tune is written and why that makes the soundtrack so great. But to add to that, I want to talk a bit about a different piece, and it's called Ahsoka Lives. The reason I want to go into this is because it's a great example of how to develop themes that already exist, because Ludwig Göransson is amazing at developing themes throughout the soundtrack. And this is no exception to that. So, starting off with this piece, now I've transcribed it here for you to look at, but starting off with it, you have this, it's kind of based around this recorder quartet, which I think is symbolic of the fact that there's only a few friends that are really involved in this storyline. It's not like this big epic Star Wars plotline, it's quite actually intimate, really. So that's kind of a symbol of that happening. But it starts off with a similar thing to the introduction, where you have these recorders, you've got this pedal note played by the top recorder on a C, and then you have these kind of pattern happening again, and as the harmony kind of grows and develops, it moves into this much more complex piece of music, and then it suddenly just lands on this incredible outburst of contrapuntal mastery, which sounds like it's out of the Baroque era or the Renaissance era, and as that's happening, you're thinking, what on earth is going on here? But then he brings in the Mandalorian's main theme as well, on top of that, in perfect counterpoint with all of the rest of it. And it's just this mind-blowing moment of musical mastery, basically. So I'm just going to let you listen to the music. It's too complicated for me to play on the piano, but I've transcribed it for you to look at on a score, because it's definitely worth looking at. And you can listen to the sort of computer perform it for you. So here's that. Obviously, fantastic music, and a definite factor as to why the music is so great in this show. But I want to talk a little bit more about something that I talked about in my last video, and that is the sensitivity towards the characters and the show itself. Baby Yoda is obviously a very kind of sensitive character, and it's difficult to write a theme for someone of such sort of sensitive nature. But I think that given the context, I think he's done a really good job. And underneath the main sort of Baby Yoda music, you've got that returning motif from Ahsoka Lives and from the intro of the Mandalorian theme, this kind of... And whilst that's happening, you've got this brilliant kind of melody with lots of kind of thick, unusual harmony in there on these kind of high strings, which are doing these little glissandes, and with a little glockenspiel in there, and it's just really nice writing. I'm just going to play you a little bit of what that sounds like now. Really beautiful writing overall, and it's just got this very nice sweet nature to it, perfect for Baby Yoda and the show as a whole. So that's all I'm going to cover today. I think that's more than enough reason for you to think and be convinced that this score is amazing, and hopefully you'll learn a little bit about why and how Ludwig Göransson has developed and essentially reinvented the sound of Star Wars. So I really hope that you learned a thing or two there and that you enjoyed that. Thanks so much for watching this video. I really hope that you learned a thing or two and that you enjoyed it. Next week, with a new episode of What Makes Music Great, we'll be back with a discussion about the soundtrack to Succession. Succession is an amazing show about kind of what happens between this really elite rich family that are kind of owned by this media mogul, And if you haven't seen it already, I'd recommend checking it out. But it's got an amazing soundtrack by Nicholas Brittle, and I'll be checking that out, so stay tuned for that one. Thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe, give the video a thumbs up, comment, share with your friends, ding that notification bell so you can stay tuned. Really supports the channel, and I'll see you next time. Thanks again, bye for now.